What drives someone to change the world? Welcome to Social Trailblazers, where we seek to answer just that question. Join Kelly Gagnon, CEO of Nonprofit Marketing Nerd, as she interviews leading social innovators and nonprofit changemakers. This podcast is brought to you by DonorBox, the easiest way for nonprofits to rock their online donations.
In this episode of Social Trailblazers, I'll be interviewing Lindsay Gramlich, President and CEO of Girls Inc. of Indianapolis. Lindsay is an extraordinary leader in the nonprofit space. In this episode, we will dive into Lindsay's 12-year tenure in development at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis that leads to her role where she is now leading Girls Inc. We'll also explore Girls Inc. strategic planning for 2025 and how Girls Inc. continues to make lasting impact on the Indianapolis community. You will not want to miss this entire episode that includes conversations on nonprofit leadership, confidence in girls and women, fundraising, and overall girl power. I am so excited today to have Lindsay Gramlich on, who is the CEO of Girls Inc. of Greater Indianapolis. And I've actually been following Lindsay's career for a while, but I'd love for all the listeners to know, Lindsay, a big question. How did you get where you are today?
Oh, that is a good question. It was a lot of the universe having a plan for me. Graduated from DePauw in 2009 in the middle of a recession. And so I didn't know what to do. I mean, a lot of us either went to graduate school, did Teach for America, did internships. And so I randomly applied for an internship at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and in marketing and development. And if you would have told me, my younger self, that I would have been in marketing and development at a nonprofit right after college, I would have laughed at you. But I had the best experience there. I started as an intern, and then I left for just a couple months, and then I came back and was there for 12 years in different stages of development. So I left there as AVP of development. So I really just went from intern to AVP over the 12 years. And then it was time. I had a lot of coaches asking me if arts and culture was where I was going to be, if I was going to stay at the museum forever. I have my master's in public affairs with nonprofit management concentration. And so I had a really tough time answering that question because I want to be well-rounded in the nonprofit space. And so I went on a journey for like a year trying to find out what was next. And Girls Inc. of Greater Indianapolis had a vice president of development job open. And so I went for it. Out of all the missions out there, this one is so dear to my heart. It always has been. So it was just a really good fit. And then there was just a really big leadership change that happened 3 months in. And I raised my hand to be interim CEO just so that there was somebody internal that could calm the waters, get things back up and running. And during that time, I decided I wanted to do it. I wanted to put my name in the hat for the permanent position, and had to go through the whole executive search process for that, but ended up getting the job in May. And so that's where I'm at. It kind of just had some bravery, had some courage in different spaces to be able to take that next step. And I couldn't be happier where I am.
Awesome. And I think it's funny. I was just talking to my business coach today, and he mentioned, especially with women, and what does like courage and confidence and bravery look like? But can you talk to me about how did you have that bravery? What kind of supported you along the way to throw your hat in the mix, right? Raise your hand. Those are big things.
Yeah. So I was doing, I think it's hands down the best leadership fellowship that's out there. It's called the Stanley K. Lacey Executive Leadership Series. I still don't know to this day how I got into this, but I was in our class 46 with 24 other amazing humans, just doing incredible things. And it was during that time that I really grew in my confidence and my leadership by having this network that I just felt so surrounded and so supported in. Our moderator was also Rick Fusen, who just retired as the president and CEO of Pacer Sports and Entertainment. Mm-hmm. And he had so many good things to teach us about leadership and courage and answering the call. And so it was just this timing of I was learning so much about myself and what it meant to be a leader and what I wanted to do in life. And it mirrored itself.
Yeah. And you said what you want to do in life. And you mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to circle back around to it. That the mission area of Girls Inc. was something that maybe was immediately aligned to you. Why, how, maybe for some listeners, like what do you do at Girls Inc., right?
Yeah. So the mission is to inspire all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. And that is really healthy, educated, and independent. So we have curriculum that is geared towards ages 5 all the way up to 24. And so at age 5, you're really just talking about what confidence is, talking through bullying and what healthy relationships are. And then in middle school, we ramp that up. So there's a touch point every part of your journey as a girl and a young woman. It's always been something that I've just inherently cared about. And while applying for this job, I was going back into kind of history of why I'm so passionate. And almost every paper I wrote at DePaul had something to do with women and girls, which is just so wild to go back and look at that. My senior thesis was about beauty and society's how society shapes what we think of beauty. And so that's just, I don't know, it just is crazy to me that it was always in me. I just didn't have that foresight to, this is what I'm going to end up doing. I also wish I had Girls Inc. growing up. We are the northernmost affiliate in Indiana. So I grew up in Northwest Indiana, and so we didn't have it growing up. But, I don't talk about this widely, but I had a really, really terrible eating disorder in high school, where I almost died from it because it was so bad. And I wish I would have had some of the confidence building skills that we are teaching our young girls going into the middle school, high school space. And so it's that experience that I can bring to our girls of always telling them not to use those words of, I'm fat, I'm big, you're strong, you're smart, you're bold, right? Reframing that. And so it's that, it's also that life experience that brings me where I'm at.
This episode is brought to you by DonorBox, the online fundraising platform that streamlines your process, elevates your donations, and ensures a user-friendly experience for your supporters. Explore the world of simplified, seamless fundraising at donorbox.org today.
Yeah, and it is funny. I mean, you and I are both DePaul grads. Go Tigers. And so I think maybe you're a year, I don't want to date both of us, but I think you're a year younger than me, right?
So, yeah.
So you're younger than me. Yeah, and I think, it is interesting. And thank you for talking about, struggles and real impact that happen in a public space, because so many people don't, and so many women don't. And so many, I think for me, you said strong, bold, those are things people probably think of when they know you, right? Probably even back in high school. It's true. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how, I know DePaul shaped me as a human. How did, we have that touch point and connection. When I mentioned what's glow to people, like, where? Huh? Yeah. What? So, how did DePaul shape you? Thanks.
DePaul is where it really became me. I tried to explain that to folks that went to bigger schools. It was so small that if you didn't do your reading, you were called out for it. And there was no hiding. You didn't get away with missing class. You didn't get away with not doing the homework. And that really put a lot of accountability on us as people. There was nobody there that could save us from that. And so it was up to you to show up every day, which is, I think I still attribute a lot of the going into scary situations back to like freshman year at DePaul. You're going into like public speaking class, and that's scary, and you're going to do it, and it's going to be fine, right? So I still take some of that of what I learned. And then, DePaul allowed opportunities like study abroad. And I have 3 kids, and my husband and I have already talked about it. We are going to try to enforce that they study abroad, because that is when Your soft skills are developed. Again, you're on your own. You got to figure it out. If you miss the train and you can't read the language, what are you going to do? Not that I want anybody to have to do that, but it's those soft skills, people skills that I think aren't taught. You just have to learn them. And so I'm so thankful that DePauw had those opportunities available for that growth, so that it was on top of the education piece, the soft skills were there as well.
And I think that's so great. You know, you're such an amazing fundraiser. It's probably people that know you think, right? Such an amazing advocate for girls and women. But I love, as someone that's lived, when you were doing your internship from 2008 to 2010, I was living in Japan, right? I'm like, never mind law school, I'm moving to Japan instead. And so I love that you're already thinking about that for your children, because that's something that like you said, like you've got to get resilience when you don't speak the language. Like, how do you get by? Oh, that's wonderful. Are there any opportunities that you feel like are, you mentioned in passing the Girls Inc. curriculum, that you feel like earlier on you're able to provide those opportunities to girls, especially to gain resiliency? And
yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a big piece of what is mentorship. And so having that, sometimes you just need someone to believe in you. And so having that one touch point that here at Girls Inc., this is your safe space. You have all of these women and men that believe in you and want you to succeed. That's part of it too, of just having that place to go where you're becoming you. And it's a judgment-free zone. And we just all we're trying to do is help you and surround you with the tools and resources to be able to thrive.
That is wonderful. And I know even with some of the best tools and resources, sometimes people thrive by first failing forward. And I always say in the nonprofit world, nothing's perfect. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you and a human has maybe faced some challenges, or what's the biggest challenge for you as a leader, or have you faced in the past? I don't know.
There's challenges. There are just challenges everywhere you turn, right? It's a hard sector to be in. We run on almost entirely philanthropic support. And so I didn't realize, coming from a really large organization, that there are things like making payroll. Like, that's a real thing. And that was a real shocker to me. And I'm sure it happened at the museum too. We didn't have access to that because it was big. It probably didn't happen at the museum. The museum was pretty healthy in their revenue coming up, but it just wasn't my job. I didn't pay attention to that. And so that was a piece too of, oh wow, like we really have to stay on top of this to ensure that like cash flow is coming in. I think that I have historically been a people pleaser. And so that has been tough for me, coming in, especially right at the beginning. So I just wanted everybody to be happy. I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted everybody to be happy, everybody to just work hard and do good. And that's not the case. And that's okay. I've had to learn the hard way that it's okay if people aren't necessarily totally aligned with how I'm moving the organization forward. But I think instead of shutting down in that conversation, it's having a transparent conversation with that person to try to explain further why we're doing such thing and how they can follow us along. And maybe a place just isn't for you anymore, So that's also a piece that I think is important for people to realize, that there are two options. You can go along with the new leadership's strategic plan, or you can come to me and I can help you try to find out what's next. It shouldn't be scary to have those conversations. And I think as women, we just internalize and we don't get it out. We don't ask for help. And I think that if we did that a little bit more, I think folks would be a little happier in where they land in their careers.
Yeah, it's amazing how much communication and proactive communication and open communication can solve, right?
Yes, it's incredible. The most simplistic, it's just communication almost 99% of the time.
Yeah. And I appreciate your transparency, because I think it is transparency, even with this, bringing to light. So I bet a lot of nonprofit leaders are you said people pleasers, but I would, also say it kind of lines with perfectionism, right? You want to like get every audience to be on board, and that's just like never possible. And it's great to see leaders that it sounds like you're very collaborative. You do your best to bring people alongside, but also know that some people aren't gonna be you can't drag them, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it was just that lesson of being able to move past that and not let it eat me alive. That is just what it is. And it's really lonely at the top. People told me that from day one. And I said, oh, no, it's not. We're fine. It is. It's very lonely at the top. And so it's really important to have your advisors. They can be friends, mentors, anyone, to be able to call and to vent and to talk through things that you can't talk with anybody else. And so if you don't have that network, I think that is key to being able to get through some of the really tough days in the nonprofit sector, because we are impacting lives. We're not building widgets or selling coffee. Like we are pouring in to youth, our girls and women. And so the day we don't get a gift, it's a sad day because that money's not going to go towards a program. And so those are things you just kind of have to work through, not take personally, even though I do, because I want our girls to have everything they possibly can. But it's just time and learning through some of the hard days and seeing the other side of that.
And I am going to pick your brain a little. Okay. So I think it's amazing. I never knew the intern to I knew you were in my head, just like, oh, Lindsay's been at the Jonas Museum for a while, right? Like that's I'm like, oh, she's been there for a while. I think she's a amazing rock star. This is my external perception, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, especially with fundraising, and I know probably could do some damage, knowing about the high turnover, especially, and you're located in Indianapolis in the fundraising space. But I know there are also a lot of people that are thinking about possibly getting into it. What recommendations would you have for someone that's anticipating transitioning into the fundraising space?
Yeah, you have to know what you're doing. At least you have to know how to talk to people. I think a lot of times people think you can go meet with you, Kelly, and be like, "Oh, can I have that gift, please?" That is not the case. It takes sometimes 3 years to build a relationship with someone before you make an ask. And so a lot of people want to come in because development looks sexy to people because you're going to lunches, events, talking with high-powered people. But I tell people all the time, you can have my seat if you want, because I'm nervous to be at this dinner. I have to be on the whole time. And so it's that piece too of you have to know what you're going into with this. It's not the sitting down and having drinks with someone. That's not it. You're selling your mission. You're also building their respect, and that takes a certain skill set. That's challenging. You also really need to believe in your mission. And so I think the turnover with development, and I'm an anomaly here because 12 years is not the trend.
No, it's not at all.
But you have to believe in it, because if you don't, you can't close the deal. So if your donor's not hearing that authenticity from you, or just trying to pour your heart out because you believe so much in the mission, it's not going to work. You're not going to have people calling you back. It just has to be there. So my advice for folks looking to go into development is to really shadow some folks first, learn just some internships type of stuff, to see if it's even for you. Because there are different development tracks, though, that you can take too. Not all of them are forward facing. There's grant writers, there's donor stewardship, database management, all of that too. So there's a lot of different roles that you can play in fundraising. And I think it's just trying to figure out what works best.
I think the number that I saw the last time, and I'm not sure how it is, a year and 8 months is the average stay of a development director. A year and 8 months. Yeah. It's about time to learn the job and leave. Right.
I hate that statistic. I just do, especially for, organizations. You're just getting to know what you're doing and building up that reputation and that respect. But I get it at the same time. I think fundraisers sometimes find burnout, or if the leadership isn't supportive of the way a fundraiser does things. I can see how that is the case, but I personally don't believe in the year to 8 month thing. So,
yeah. So you talked about, your degree. I know that you have a lot of knowledge and expertise in the public policy side. Can you talk a little bit more about what's happening at Girls Inc. from a advocacy and policy level? And I know all the wonderful, amazing programming you're doing, but share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we're actually about to launch a new strategic plan in 2025. And one of our goals is uplifting girl voices, and that includes advocacy. And so people squirm when you say advocacy, because I think in their minds, it's we're going to come out, we're going to take a stance, and we're going to be totally partisan. And that's not the case. We are 501c3. We cannot be partisan. Everything we do has to be bipartisan. We can't endorse candidates. We can't endorse policies. But what we can is we can advocate for girls' and women's rights, basic human rights, right? That we want to support the whole girl. And that means we support the whole girl and what she chooses for herself, right? And so it doesn't have to be squirmy. It doesn't have to be so political, but we're in this stage of life that everything is. And so we're trying to figure out how to give our girls the tools and practice and resources to use their voice. And we also want them to know that we're also out there championing their voices. Community leaders, staff and board are doing that. And so there's a lot of different ways that we are trying to do some advocacy work, because we've lost civic engagement too. And free and fair elections, we just aren't teaching that kind of stuff anymore. And so we do a thing called She Votes. And we started in the summer and we're still doing it, where it's all about civic engagement. It's the girls are running for office, and it was the best thing ever. We had a 5-year-old president, and she was the best. And it made my heart so happy, because politics is just so polarizing right now, but it doesn't have to be. And we can start planting those seeds of what it means, what local elections mean. We were talking to some of our girls, and I'm like, well, my vote doesn't matter. And I was like, nope, we're going to talk about this. Because it does. You have no idea what the margin of error is as it relates to like school board candidates, city council candidates that are the ones actually setting the legislation that affects you. So there's that. And then we also have a program called Young Women in Leadership. And I actually am facilitating that program this year. We have 30 girls in this cohort from 9th grade to 12th grade. It's a mix. And I am so excited about it, because I can be working directly with the girls and understanding, having my ear to the ground of getting to know what they need from us, what it truly means to be a leader, and have a role model, and bringing in several other role models to be there teaching leadership skills. But with that is also a teen advocacy council that we are doing through Girls Inc. National. So we will also be doing an advocacy project that they will be able to pick what that is. And then we work with Cummins and have an advocacy day every year. It's my favorite day of the year. My husband's like, I don't understand. This is like Christmas morning for you. And I'm like, it is. It's actually Christmas morning for me. Because our girls, they get to actually talk to the senators and reps about a bill. And I think that is so cool that they get to show up and do that. I wish I had that back in high school and middle school. So this year, they're going to get some of the bills beforehand. We'll work through that during our Young Women in Leadership sessions, so that they know exactly what they're going to say, what they're going to do when we go to the State House for Advocacy Day.
Oh, wow. Lindsay, that's so cool. I think I might be one of those like semi-squirmy people. But so I think, and especially for other nonprofit leaders, the way you have really reframed, especially for your organization, what advocacy looks like to truly be bipartisan. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And so you might have even talked other listeners like me into possibly supporting Girls Inc. So if you are interested in donating or volunteering, what should they do?
Yeah, so visit our website, girlsincindy.org, or follow us on social media. I also My email, I want to share with everybody too. What's the best way to do that? Just say it now, or have you?
Yeah, go ahead and, and then if people want to connect with you, how do they do that? And then we'll make sure to drop it in the show notes as well.
Okay. Yeah. So my email is lgramlich@girlsinkindy.org. So it's pretty easy to send a message to me, or follow us, Girls Inc. Indy, on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn and X. And then our website is girlsinkindy.org. And so if you want to learn more, there's ways to sign up to volunteer. We take large groups of corporations and have volunteer days for them. With like Lily, for instance, we do a Lily Day of Service where they come in and help us do kits or organizing, or we have a new green space garden, helping clean that up a little bit. We also have individual volunteer opportunities that there's a form to fill out so that we can ensure that we're matching you with what works best. Because we love volunteers. I am a volunteer other places, but sometimes volunteers don't always show up when they're supposed to. And so we want to make sure that at the end of the day, this is a good fit, that you have the time for it, and things like that. And then, of course, there's always the financial side, that every gift counts towards helping our girls succeed. And so the Girls Inc. experience is really having the trained facilitators and trauma-based mentoring and mental health support in our curriculum that are delivering those programs. And so the Girls Inc. experience requires dollars to do. And so the more we have, the more girls we serve. The less we have, the more we have to augment and figure things out.
Awesome. No, Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. And I know for everyone listening, I think you inspired me. So for everyone listening, please make sure to, I will also add, Lindsay gave her contact information, which is an amazing thing I would never do. I'm like, thank you very much for your contact information out. And I would encourage people also to follow Lindsay, not just through Girls Inc., but also her personal LinkedIn, where she does provide a lot of information, especially if you're in the Indianapolis area. She is doing great things across the board. So follow her on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Social Trailblazers. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who are passionate about making a difference. Special thanks to our sponsor, Donor Box, for supporting this podcast and the incredible work of nonprofits everywhere. Join us next time as we continue to dive deep into the motivations of the change makers shaping our world. Until then, keep trailblazing.